Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. So I wasn't able to reformat that video correctly, but that video is going to be probably put in the archives. Welcome into Big Duke's Virtual Race Hub episode. I think this is 13, but we are shifting gears, if you will. I know you guys have seen probably a little bit of shift in some content, a lot of drag racing content. Um, we have an opportunity here at Above the Yellow Line Media to um, d- partner with NHRA a little bit and do some content with them. They invited some of the ATYL members over there in Charlotte out to the Four Wide Nationals. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it out there for that, but that would have been cool. But I'm not able to make it out there for that. But they will be there. So a little bit of shifting gears. We have Goat Talk right before this show. Man, it was just way watered down with sim racing talk, right? There's only so much you can listen to for an hour straight or 2 hours straight, and it not be boring. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and start covering a little bit of drag racing content. We came off the Four Wide Nationals last week. Smoke Tony Stewart got that Wally, brought home the Wally. But I'm going to cover that a little bit next week going into the Charlotte Four Wide Nationals. I wanted to break down some of the basics, and I looked on Google today. I couldn't find a good Google image of a breakdown of a track, so pardon pardon me. This is very very rudimentary, but working from left to right. You see the initial heading here where it says starting line. That's going to be where, remember when we talked about the Christmas tree last week, right? The Christmas tree. That's where the Christmas tree is going to be at the starting line. So in this diagram, where that first label is the starting line. Now you're looking at this, it's like, holy cow, what are all these lines? This just looks like maybe a barcode that got erased halfway or something to that effect. And this is when earlier in the week when I put out some content. If you guys go check out my TikTok, I put out some content about starting line prowess and how getting a good reaction time, hitting the Christmas tree good, can make a difference in the race. As drag racers, the track is divided up into segments, which is what you see here with the first line that says starting line. The first timeline that you come to is that 60-foot timer line. That is 60 foot from the starting line to that line is timed. They know that it takes 1.0 seconds to get from starting to 60 foot down the track. All right. That number is a very crucial number in a drag racer's notebook. That tells you how much traction you either got or didn't get off the starting line. Um, some of the super stockers that have clutches, it might tell them how much maybe their clutch is slipping when they let on the clutch and take off. That number plays a vital role in a drag racer's notebook. That first segment, that first 60-foot segment there is uh, what's that starts the whole race. So here is a time slip, right? Here's a reaction time. The first up at the top, there he goes. The first 60-foot time. This car went a 1.42 in 60 foot. Okay. So we got the starting line and we got the 60-foot timer. The next timer that they come to is what's known as the 330 timer. That is 330 foot down the track from the starting line. Okay. That tells you from the starting line through 60 foot out to half track of an eighth mile, because an eighth mile is 660 feet. At half track, 330 feet, that gives you a half track performance of, this is on eighth mile now. Don't forget, this is only on eighth mile at half track. That gives you a 330 foot snapshot of performance from the starting line to 330 foot down the track. As you're gaining speed, the track conditions change. These numbers can skew depending on your track conditions. Drag racers, yes, it's straight. Man, they skate around a lot. If you guys ever watch NHRA and watch from that camera view from the rear, they aren't just right down Broadway. It's a skate down there. They got to drive those things. So the next line that we come to on a drag strip is what's known as the mile-an-hour cone, the mile-an-hour light, what officially known as the 660-foot mile-an-hour timer, eighth mile-an-hour timer. There's a wide array of vocabulary you can call it, but that line is set 66 feet in front of the 660-foot mark. Okay, so I know this gets confusing sometimes. So we go from the starting line to 60-foot timer to the 330-foot timer, which will go here. Sorry, starting line 600, the 60-foot timer, the 330-foot timer. All right, and then the eighth mile, which is 660 feet, double 330 feet. So on an eighth mile track, the 60-foot and then the half track timer would be 330 feet, and the 660-foot timer would be your ET timer. But in front of that, this is how mile an hour is measured in drag racing. 66 feet in front of that eighth mile light, so, and also the 1,000-foot timer and the quarter mile timer. 66 foot in front of those timers, there is what's called the mile an hour timer. Drag racing mile an hour is not measured from the starting line to the finish line. If you do quick math and divide the distance by the speed, distance by the time, you will never get the mile an hour that the time slip shows on it. Such as here, right? The 1,000-foot mile an hour was 670 at 144. Let's do a real quick math. All right, so 1,000 foot divided by 6.704, sorry, is 149 mile an hour. Now, this is a bad example because there's some different throttle stop stuff in play. I'll go back to this. Sorry. 66 foot in front of each ET cone, each eighth mile an hour, eighth mile, 1,000-foot, quarter mile. Those are the big distances in drag racing. You got eighth mile drag racing. You got pro drag. You got the top fuel and funny cars that run to 1,000 feet, and you have the pro stockers and all the other classes that run to a quarter mile. That's that extra set of lines in between the eighth mile and the quarter mile is the 1,000-foot timers. Those are what the top fuel and funny cars run to. But in front of each of those timers, 66 feet is the mile an hour timer. Now, from the time it breaks that beam to the time it breaks the 1,000 or the next beam, either be eighth mile, quarter mile, or 1,000-foot, whichever one, the computer knows how much time that took and that 66-foot distance. So at like a 330 mile an hour pass, that equation is like a 0.2 seconds. It takes a dragster or a funny car, whatever it may be, if it runs 330 miles an hour, it crosses that 66-foot beam and breaks the next beam in 0.2 seconds. So that's how mile an hour is generated on a drag strip. It's not from the starting line all the way to the finish line. The mile an hour is measured 66 feet in front of the finish line. So it knows at the speed that when you get 66 foot in front of the finish line, you break a beam. The next beam you break is the finish line beam, and it knows that distance, and that speed, and that's how your speed is generated on a drag strip. It has nothing to do with the amount of time it took you to get from the starting line to the finish line. There's a lot of things that come into play. and we'll get into this in way later episodes. Clutch settings, different throttle stop settings. There's different classes that have a certain amount of time that they can't run under, so they play with the throttle and different things electronically to slow the car down, if you will, but it still goes relatively the same speed. It's an anomaly. I'm going to get some time slips from my cousin. I grew up, like I said, I grew up drag racing, and I could talk this all night long. But if you look here, so here we go. Let's go over the time slip. The 60-foot time was a 1.42. Okay, so from 60 foot to 330, it was a 3.57. Eighth mile time was a 5.267. Eighth mile, it doesn't have the eighth mile an hour. It doesn't come on this one. 1,000 foot was a 670. And then a quarter mile was a 7.0 at 185 miles an hour. So let's go at a quarter mile. 1,320 foot divided by 791.4. So if you do that equation, that comes out to where that car from the starting line to the finish line should have only ran 166 miles an hour. But you see it ran 185 miles an hour. So again, time is measured from a start to a stop. Speed is measured the last 66 foot of the racetrack is where the speed is measured at. That is the true speed of the car. It's only 66 feet. And if you can cover that distance in 0.2 seconds, I'll give you 300 mile an hour any day of the week. Let's see what we got on the chat. You didn't know that, Anthony. Sorry, I missed all this chat. Sorry. Big Mike. Okay, hey. Okay, so yeah, so this is how that is how your speed is measured in drag racing. Now, the reason why you see all these numbers here to the right, drag racing is always measured out to the thousandths of a second. Much like NASCAR, not much like NASCAR. NASCAR would be much like drag racing. You see close finishes in NASCAR where it's like, oh, this is the closest finish, and it was 0.001 and 0.002 and like 0.010. Yeah, those are close finishes in a 500-mile race. But there's oftentimes, and I mean oftentimes, where a drag race comes down to well beyond the 10,000ths of a second. The way cars are set up these days with the electronics and the ability to manipulate the throttle, if you will, through timers and understanding the weather and how it affects the car, keeping a logbook of all your past runs from a racetrack and knowing how the weather was within, keeping up with the weather, the barometer, all that stuff goes into drag racing and plays a big factor on how fast or slow your car will run. The elevation that you're at plays a big difference on how fast your car will run. There's a lot less oxygen in a higher track, so it has less to breathe in. You get down here to sea level, there's a whole lot of oxygen down here. They can really spin them superchargers and get a whole lot of air in there and get some oxygen going in there. But that's I don't know. I just kind of started rambling. Sorry about that. But that's how your speed is measured here. We'll go back to the diagram. I know this is as kindergarten as it gets, y'all, and I get it. I just sat down on Paint this morning at work. I got on Google and I couldn't find a good image that segmented it out. So I did some squares on Paint. Uh-oh. my headphone cut off. I don't know. You've seen the dragsters once in Houston. You tried to figure out. Okay. Yeah. So you've seen the dragsters once in Houston and you tried to figure it out, but NASCAR and dirt was easier. Okay. Yes, I do agree. NASCAR and dirt is easier to figure out on a whole because you have a lot more time during a NASCAR race or a dirt race to sit in the stands and figure it out. With NHRA, it's they're a run only lasts, the true run only lasts 3 seconds, but from the time they crank the cars, do the burnouts, back them up, get them staged, get all the fuels, get all the I'm with you, get all the fuel pressure set and everything. It could be a couple minutes, overall. So but that's still not a lot of time to try to dissect what you just watched, and also getting your absolute teeth rattled, your brains rattled, and your skull rattled by the nitro cars. So it's a lot to take into a drag race. I hope anybody that gets to go goes and watches a Top Fuel dragster or a funny car, because it is a it is a life-changing experience if you can get in between them or if you can get near them when they launch, because it is like nothing else. There's a lot of videos out on YouTube about the science of the fuel pumps in these Top Fuel and funny car engines. Um, it looks like you dump a fire hose down in the cylinder when these things, when they whack the throttle and go full throttle. It's an amazing amount of fuel that runs down in those cylinders, and it is a very volatile fuel. But couple weeks, we're going to have the NHRA 4-wide nationals in Charlotte, back-to-back 4-wide nationals. Tony Stewart coming off a big win, first Wally. I don't know if anybody knows this. I don't have a picture of the Wally. Let me see if I can find one. But the Wally is the name of the trophy that NHRA hands out to each class winner, and it is named after the founder of NHRA, Wally Parks. However, the trophy is not designed after NHRA founder Wally Parks. The trophy is designed after a gasser racer named, I think, is Jack Jones, out in California. And he got invited by Wally out to Pomona to take some pictures, and that iconic picture of Jack holding the helmet with the safety gear on the tire, that is the Wally. So hang on. See if I can pull one up. I thought I had one on here. Here we go. We'll save image. We'll add a scene here. Oof. Well, that did not work out too very well, did it? Let me see if I can find another one. But that is what a Wally looks like. Let me see here. Well, it's blurry as can be. Oh, there's a good one. There we go. Hey, Brian, how's it going? Yeah, we've been talking NHRA all night, man. This is an iconic Wally for NHRA. So that is a trophy that is named after the founder of NHRA, but is not designed after the founder of NHRA. It is designed after top gas racer Jack Jones, out from California, that went out and took pictures at Wally Park's request. But like I said, we have 4 Wad Nationals coming up. Again, let's go back over the let's back up real quick before we get out of here. 4 Wad Nationals coming up, but here was our talking point of the night. A track layout for drag racing. What does it look like? It's a straight line, but how many segments are there? There's a lot of segments. You have the starting line. You have the first set of timers you come to is a 60-foot timer. That time is a big indicator for drag racers once they get back to the pits. Obviously, they don't know until they get back to the pits, but that time, the 60-foot time, is a big indicator to drag racers on how the run is going to go. Instantly, you'll know, and they could only be off by 3 or 4 thousandths of a second, and they will know that that run is going to be either better or worse. Like I said, when you talk thousandths of a second finishes in NASCAR, I just got to say that's cute. That's cute when you talk thousandths of a second in NASCAR, because that's just common talk in NHRA. Yes, I am glad. Yes, that's awesome that Taylor's getting to attend the 4 Wide Nationals. I wish I could be there. I'm not going to be able to be there for that one, but we're going to get with NHRA and get out to some more this year, because I absolutely love going to national events. But yeah, Taylor will be at the 4 Wide Nationals. Back to the 60-foot timer. Huge number for drag racers to look at, followed by the 3:30 timer. That lets them know, okay, we're already down the track. In a pro category, this number is significant. In a sportsman category, the 3:30 is a little bit different, because there's a lot at play with throttle stops. And when I say throttle stops, in some of the sportsman categories, there's a number that they cannot go under. And if they go under that number, they break out, or they'll more than likely lose. More than likely. So in order to achieve that number, they will play with a throttle stop, and they'll leave the line, and then the mechanics, the electronics, will just close the carburetor. The person will still be wide open throttle, but electronically the carburetor will be shut off, and it'll just stay like that for a certain amount of time that they put into the computer, or I'm sorry, in the timer. And that's all done through monitoring the weather and understanding how the weather affects things. And drag racing is a big math. Drag racing is a big math equation. You have to understand barometric pressures. You have to understand temperatures. You have to understand elevations. There's a ton that goes into drag racing, and it's not just going down just going down Broadway. Now, if you're racing in the street, sure, that's, fastest car wins. Pro categories, yes. Fastest car does not always win in drag racing either. It's actually the quickest car. You can have a quicker elapsed time with a slower mile an hour. So it's not always the fastest car that wins. It's the quickest car that wins. So that's another kind of a mind game that to think about. You can be the fastest, but if you're not the quickest, it really doesn't matter. But how are you quicker and not faster? I don't know. It is. It's, let's see, what'd you say here? It's cute. It's cute, but I see how it's common in HRA, so freaking fast in such a short amount of time with different sections. Yes, there's a lot of different sections. So there you go. You go to a Saturday night track that might just be an eighth mile. From the 660 foot on, that wouldn't even be there. So on a Saturday night 8th mile program, you're just going to look at 60 foot, 330 foot, 660 foot. And again, how mile an hour is generated in NHRA and in drag racing. Mile an hour is not derived from the starting line to the finish line. That has nothing to do with it. Mile an hour is calculated from 66 foot in front of the finish line to the finish line. As soon as the car breaks that beam and 66 foot in front of it until it breaks the beam in the finish line, it knows that is a specific certified distance, and the computer knows that it's going to take X amount of time to go 66 foot, and that's how your mile an hour is generated within NHRA and drag racing. If you put it in the calculator, I think at 0.2 seconds at 66 foot is 330 mile an hour. I think that's what I looked at earlier. So sorry about that. That is how drag racing, that's how a track is broke down. So AJ, yes. There you go. So quicker is not always faster. Faster is not always quicker. That's an interesting anomaly. And how does that happen, you ask? Well, I think you probably know, but there's very different clutch settings within those fuel cars. There's a multiple clutch disc, how much they slip at a certain part of the track. I'm going to guess that John, slipped it out a little bit longer, and Tasca hooked it up a little bit sooner to get some more mile an hour. No, sorry, reverse that. Tasca slipped it out a little bit longer and got more momentum going into it when it locked up. Force probably locked it up a little bit sooner. Maybe, but anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of different things that go into drag racing as far as mile an hour and ET. They do not go hand in hand. Just because you're fast doesn't mean you're quick. Just because you're quick doesn't mean you're fast. But that is an anomaly. It seems like an anomaly. It shouldn't work that way. Oh no, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm new. I'm kind of new to ATYL. I'm just learning some of the contacts here. I appreciate you. I appreciate you commenting. I kind of figured you had I kind of figured you had a really good grasp about what was going on here. But yeah, so I grew up drag racing. My dad was a drag racer all growing up. All over the country, but was a sportsman. Never had the funds. See a big Mike. Have a good one. Never had the funds to make it professionally, but man, raced all over the country. Multiple track championships, a lot of Division II, NHRA Division II championships, and Super Gas. A lot of wins. A lot of wins in IHRA Super Rod. So I've been around for a while too, but it's good to talk NHRA and bring it to above the yellow line. So just kind of diversifying our portfolio, if you will. Like I said earlier, kind of shifting gears on the show. Goat Talk was before us, and man, they do a tremendous job. And what's the point in following a sim racing show with a sim racing show, right? So let's seize the moment and kind of shift gears, and we're going to keep talking a little bit drag racing. Next week we're going to talk more about what I was talking about with throttle stops and getting into quote unquote bracket racing. What is bracket racing? How does bracket racing work? My opinion on bracket racing. I love bracket racing. I think it's phenomenal. It is a whole animal in itself, and the way you have to attack a bracket race is a mind-boggling adventure, if you will. Some of the guys that win a lot of these things, man, they are absolutely tremendous mind game people. They understand how to race and what to do to win a race. And but it's been fun talking to you guys. I could talk about this all night long, but we're gonna cut it off here. And next week we're gonna talk about bracket racing, quote unquote. What's called handicap style racing, where one car leaves before the other, and and the times, you know, are judged, or not judged, but times are on the scoreboard, and the Christmas tree is activated at the different times based on the difference between the times that the cars say that they're supposed to run, or they say that they're going to run. And we'll get into some different strategies going forward about, just because I say my car can run a 7 flat, it actually could maybe run a 650, or, you know, a 670, and maybe I'm holding back some numbers. And so we're gonna really dive into drag racing over the next several weeks, and learn about different strategies, and how drag racing works. It is not just putting the foot to the floor and getting to the finish line, unless you are a professional drag racer, pro stock motorcycle. A lot of those, some of those categories, it doesn't matter. I'm talking about bracket racing, getting into sportsman racing, and learning how to drag race on a budget, if you will. Anyway, I didn't get, like I said, I didn't get a chance to change the video. Oh, real quick, Happy Hour Racing, guys, our partners at Happy Hour Racing, have some beautiful merch out. If you guys go check them out, use code ATYL 2025, get you a discount. They have subscription service where you get monthly subscription boxes. They have all the different merch, NASCAR merch, beautiful NASCAR merch. Have some retro merch. The $1 Million Bill hat, I really like that hat. I'm not a Bill Elliott fan, but I really like that hat. But you guys make sure you go check out Happy Hour Racing, and this will be the last time I'm gonna change this video after tonight. So we're gonna have a different intro video. We're gonna be a little bit more NASCAR centered, or not NASCAR, NHRA centered. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thanks for helping me get this show started. We're gonna pivot, and I hope everybody joins us along with the journey. But thank you guys. We're gonna get on out of here. You guys keep digging.